I just wanted to go back to splitting of assets. How does it work if you own something before you got married or there was an inheritance? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not going to give you necessarily too specific of an answer because every situation can be different, and I'd recommend that you speak with a lawyer as well. But certain assets like your matrimonial home or considered your matrimonial property will get split. So maybe you owned a house before and then now both of you live in it. That asset is likely to get split. There are certain assets that you can avoid the whole splitting process and actually keep for yourself. And a couple of those would be like inheritance, or if you receive benefits from a life insurance policy. But you also want to be careful because how you own those assets also will determine whether they get split going through a divorce. So for example, if you received an inheritance from somebody, you want to make sure that remains in an individual account, means an account only in your name. Because if you put it into a joint account, those assets could be split during the divorce process because now you've given half of them to your spouse essentially. So that's why it's important, and why I mentioned before, it might be a good idea for you to speak to a different financial planner than the one that you've been using throughout your relationship, because that financial planner can give you that advice where it might be awkward if, the three of you are in a conversation and you get this inheritance and your financial planner saying, hey, for tax purposes, you should put this in a joint account, but because you're thinking of going through a separation, that actually would be a bad idea. So that's why I say every situation is different and can be very dynamic, and why you want to have a team of, maybe legal professionals and financial professionals, kind of helping you and coaching you through the process. And it might be awkward if you're using the same professionals that you had throughout your relationship. And it puts them in an awkward position too, because they technically can't breach confidentiality between spouses. And again, you just don't want to take that risk.
Right. So what I'm hearing is you'd recommend working with your own team, getting your own financial planner, finding your own lawyer, finding your own people that can work with you. Okay.
Yeah, you want to get independent advice.
Independent advice. Mm-hmm. Now, there's another question that I hear, and it's always about insurance. What kind of insurance do I need? Do I need to get other insurance? Can you help us out? Insurance is...
It's often a requirement in separation agreements. Frequently, if you have children as well. A lot of the times there's a life insurance policy requirement, and in most cases we recommend getting a cheap life insurance policy. Usually it's a term insurance. I won't go through the different types of insurance, but usually you're looking for something inexpensive that's going to cover that need for you. And most of the time people get a separate insurance policy for that agreement. They're not tying in one that they already own, so maybe for example, you may have $1 million term insurance policy that you took out for the family. What you want to do is change the beneficiary, so the beneficiary is not your spouse anymore, and get a separate policy. Maybe it's $100,000, $250,000, and you would dedicate that new policy for your agreement, and you can make whomever you're supposed to make the beneficiary of the policy there. So you want to just look at, separating all of your stuff and including the insurance. You don't want to use necessarily like your large insurance policies for the agreement, unless the agreement calls for a larger insurance policy. But often I'd say, shop around for some new insurance, what you need, and you can talk to a broker. I'm an insurance broker, but often when we do these things for our clients, we're getting a separate policy to fulfill whatever the agreement stated.
So depending on the situation that you're in, you may need to get a separate insurance policy.
Yes.
And you have to look at your financial situation as a whole to determine what you need.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. You might be taking off your spouse's employment benefits and things like that. So you want to look too at, how am I going to cover my healthcare expenses and if something happens to me. So that's something else you can talk to your financial planner about, an insurance broker, and what happens when you leave the benefits plans as well. So.
That's important. So looking at different benefit packages for where your spouse works, where you work, and how it'll all work out after you're divorced. Mm-hmm. All right. So money. A few years ago, I met John. I told you that. And I've always had a pretty scarcity mindset when it comes to money. And I'm working on that. Have some notes in my phone that remind me about abundance. But why is it that in particular, women don't know about money, haven't learned about money, don't talk about money, don't plan for money, and then when something happens, they're scrambling to try to figure things out? What do you think the importance is when it comes to money and mindset?
For sure. So oftentimes when you're in a relationship, like a financial relationship as a financial planner, we realize that one person in the couple often takes the lead on the financial stuff. Oftentimes it's the husband. It can also be the wife. It's not necessarily 100% either or. But we do find that one person generally likes to take charge in those scenarios, and the other person kind of takes like a back seat. People find money very intimidating, and also can tie money to their self-worth. So they like to kind of avoid it because they don't want to have those conversations. But what I often remind people in terms of especially mindset and just what money really is, has nothing to do with your worth as a person. Money is more of an economic value. It's numbers in your bank account. It's more like how much is the labor that you're doing worth. It has nothing to do with your value actually as a human. So really you just want to get present to like, what are my numbers? What is my bank account, worth? And it doesn't actually reflect anything about you as a human. The other thing as well is oftentimes, women tend to be the caregivers. Maybe they'll step back from work for the children when they're young and things like that. And then they stop kind of thinking about money and focus on other things. We also often see that, women tend to be more big picture, and where men are more focused on kind of the day-to-day or like, some of the other details. But women tend to be, or a lot of the times they're focused on like the big picture and like what's really important in life. Whereas sometimes, other people are not. And the day-to-day, the details of like, did my stocks go up or down, $1,000 this week, isn't necessarily top of mind or a priority for a lot of people.
You spend part of your time talking to people about money and mindset.
Yeah.
Some of it, yeah. If you had to give our audience two pieces of advice, two things that you could say to them with regards to their money, two things you could leave with them that you've learned that you think are important, what would those be?
So the two things, I think I've already talked about them, but just in summary would be like, get to know all of your assets and your liabilities and your cash flow, so a budget. And you don't have to do it in one day, it doesn't have to be in an hour, but over time, get to know these things. It's particularly important when you're going through a separation, because you also need to know, am I going to get half of my partner's pension? You also get to split CPP credits and things like that when you're going through your divorce. So you need to actually know where those things are, or what those things, like what do you actually have, in order to get great advice. The second thing is, if you don't know a lot of these things themselves, and to be honest, 99% of people who are not financial planners don't, look for a team of professionals who can actually help you and give you great advice and walk you through, what's the process and what does my life look like after divorce. So okay, like I can do this, I'm going to be okay financially. Sometimes it's just good to go through that process so you can have peace of mind and know like I can actually make this decision for myself. I don't have to be worried about where my next paycheck's coming from or my next meal or how am I going to pay my rent.
Great advice. Now, so how can we serve you, John? Where can we find you on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, website?
Yeah, we have them all. My company is called Retirement Income Group. We work, all over. Our head office is based in Ajax. There's also an office in Mississauga. But you can look on our website. We're totally set up to do everything online and digital over Zoom if you want. So yeah, you can reach out there. I also have a YouTube channel. It's Retirement Income Group, the YouTube channel. And we do, market updates and things on the stock market, but also things about financial planning and tax tips and estate planning tips. So there's a lot of great information. And we have an awesome newsletter as well, where sometimes you'll get private interviews and things like that to help you work through whatever you're dealing with.
So we'll link that all up underneath this podcast today. It's been just like a pleasure having you today here speak with everyone.
Thanks. It's my first outdoor interview at a cottage. So
yeah,
I'm having a lot of fun.
It's awesome. It is a lot of fun. Let's do it like this all the time.
I know,
from
right?
now on. Now I have
it's much better than the boardroom.
It's better than the boardroom. Right? Now I have one final question for you. What does it mean to you to thrive through divorce?
To thrive through divorce. Interesting. I think it's really, to be able to deal with things powerfully, take them head on, and to know that, it's a great life is awaiting for you on the other side. I know that it can be very emotionally triggering, and you're kind of going to go through a lot of things. I've seen it with lots of clients and friends and family members. But just know that there's a great life, awaiting for you, and it doesn't have to stay bad forever, right?
Great advice. Great. Well, thank you all for being here today with us. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Hope to inspire you to be the best person that you can be. John, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I hope that I've inspired you to be the best person that you can be. Know that you're worthy, you're loved. And if you like what you're listening to, or you know someone who could benefit from listening to this, send it to them. Subscribe below, like, follow. Thanks for being here with me today.